The clatter of dishes and the hum of conversation filled the diner, but all I could hear was the incessant buzzing of my phone. I wiped my hands on my apron and glanced around, making sure Cynthia wasn't watching. My mother-in-law had eyes like a hawk and the disposition of a drill sergeant. "Sam, table 6 needs their order." Earl's gruff voice carried from the kitchen. I nodded, tucking a loose strand of hair behind my ear. "On it." As I hurried to deliver the steaming plates, my phone buzzed again. Who could be so desperate to reach me? I rarely got messages these days, let alone a flurry of them. The moment I set down the last plate, I ducked into the small employee bathroom. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone. 5 messages from an unknown number. I opened the first one and felt the floor drop out from under me. "Your husband is cheating on you. I'm sorry." The next 4 messages were pictures. David, my David, with another woman. Kissing her. Holding her. Looking at her the way he used to look at me. I gripped the edge of the sink, my knuckles turning white. This couldn't be real. We'd been married for 5 years. Sure, things had been strained lately, but cheating? David would never. A sharp knock on the door made me jump. "Samantha, what's taking so long? We've got customers waiting." Cynthia's voice cut through my shock like a knife. I splashed cold water on my face, willing the tears not to fall. "Coming," I called, my voice surprisingly steady. I emerged from the bathroom, plastering on a smile that felt more like a grimace. Cynthia stood there, arms crossed, her perfectly coiffed hair gleaming under the fluorescent lights. "Really, Samantha," she'd said, "I know you're not used to hard work, but this is a business. We can't have you lollygagging in the bathroom every 5 minutes." I bit back a retort. After 3 years of working in their diner, you'd think they'd cut me some slack. But no, in Cynthia and Earl's eyes, I'd always be the girl who wasn't good enough for their precious David. "Sorry, Cynthia. It won't happen again." She nodded curtly. "See that it doesn't. Now, get back to work. The lunch rush is about to start." As I moved through the diner, taking orders and refilling coffee cups, my mind raced. What was I going to do? Confront David? Tell his parents? The thought of either option made my stomach churn. "You okay, Sam?" Earl's voice startled me. I turned to find my father-in-law studying me with narrowed eyes. "You look a little pale." I forced a smile. "I'm fine, Earl. Just a bit tired." He grunted. "Well, buck up. We need you on your toes today. The health inspector's coming by later." Great. Just what I needed. Another source of stress. The lunch rush hit like a tidal wave, and I threw myself into work, grateful for the distraction. But every time I had a moment to breathe, those images flashed through my mind. David with her. David betraying me. As the last customer left and we began cleaning up, my phone buzzed again. I glanced at it, half expecting more damning evidence. Instead, it was a message from my brother, Mike. "Big news, sis. Call me when you can." I smiled, the first genuine one all day. Whatever was going on with David, at least I still had my family. "Samantha." Cynthia's sharp voice cut through my moment of peace. "Don't just stand there. We need to prep for tomorrow." I sighed, pocketing my phone. As I followed Cynthia into the kitchen, I made a decision. I wouldn't confront David. Not yet. I needed time to think, to plan. And maybe, just maybe, to find a way out of this mess. Little did I know, my brother's news would set in motion a chain of events that would change everything. I collapsed onto my bed, exhausted from another grueling day at the diner. The house was quiet. David was working late again. Or so he said. I pushed the thought away, not ready to confront that particular demon. My phone buzzed, and I saw Mike's name flash on the screen. I answered, forcing cheer into my voice. "Hey, little brother. What's this big news you've been teasing me about?" "Sam." Mike's excitement was palpable. "You're not going to believe this. I'm engaged." I sat up, a genuine smile spreading across my face. "What?" "Mike, that's fantastic. Tell me everything." As Mike gushed about his whirlwind romance with Lisa, I felt a bittersweet pang. I was thrilled for my brother, But his joy only highlighted the stark contrast with my own crumbling marriage. "The wedding's in 3 weeks," Mike said. "I know it's short notice, but we just couldn't wait. You'll be there, right?" My heart sank. 3 weeks? There was no way Cynthia and Earl would let me take time off with such short notice. But how could I miss my only brother's wedding? "Of course I'll be there," I heard myself say. I wouldn't miss it for the world. After hanging up, reality crashed down around me. How was I going to make this work? The thought of asking my in-laws for time off filled me with dread. The next morning, I steeled myself as I entered the diner. Cynthia was at the counter, meticulously counting the cash drawer. "Good morning, Cynthia," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I need to talk to you about something important." She barely glanced up. "Make it quick, Samantha. We open in 10 minutes. I took a deep breath. My brother's getting married in 3 weeks. I need a few days off to attend the wedding. Cynthia's head snapped up, her eyes narrowing. "Absolutely not. You know we're short-staffed as it is." "But it's my brother's wedding," I protested. "I can't miss it." "You should have thought about that before agreeing to work here," she snapped. "We took you in, gave you a job when you had nothing. And this is how you repay us." I felt my cheeks burning with anger and shame. I've worked here for 3 years without a single day off. Surely I've earned a few days for a family event. "Family event?" Cynthia scoffed. "We're your family now, Samantha. Or have you forgotten that?" The bell above the door jingled, and David walked in. He looked between us, sensing the tension. "What's going on?" "Your wife thinks she can just abandon us for some frivolous family party," Cynthia said, her voice dripping with disdain. I turned to David, silently pleading for his support. For a moment our eyes met, and I saw a flicker of the man I'd fallen in love with. Then he looked away. "Mom, maybe we can work something out," he said hesitantly. "It is her brother's wedding." Cynthia's mouth tightened into a thin line. "Fine," she spat. 3 days. Not a minute more. And you'll work double shifts before and after to make up for it." Relief washed over me, quickly followed by resentment. Was this what my life had become? Begging for scraps of freedom? As I tied on my apron, I caught David watching me. For a moment, I thought he might say something, offer some word of support or comfort. Instead, he turned away, disappearing into the kitchen. I squared my shoulders and plastered on my customer service smile. 3 weeks. I just had to survive 3 more weeks, and then I'd be free, if only for a few days. Free to be with my real family. To remember who I was before I became trapped in this suffocating life. But as I moved through the diner, taking orders and refilling coffee cups, a nagging thought persisted. How was I going to face my family, knowing what I knew about David? How could I celebrate love and commitment when my own marriage was a sham? The weight of my secret pressed down on me, threatening to crush me. But I pushed it aside. I had 3 weeks to figure it out. 3 weeks to decide whether to fight for my marriage or walk away from it all. Little did I know, the decision would soon be taken out of my hands. The days leading up to my departure were a blur of double shifts and tense silences. David and I barely spoke, ships passing in the night. I told myself it was just the stress of work, but deep down I knew better. On the morning I was set to leave, I stood in the diner's kitchen, going over last-minute instructions with Earl. Cynthia hovered nearby, her disapproval palpable. "Now, you're sure you can handle the lunch rush without me?" I asked, anxiety gnawing at my stomach. Earl grunted. "We managed just fine before you came along, Samantha. We'll survive 3 days without you." I bit my lip, stung by his dismissive tone. "Right. Of course." Cynthia stepped forward, her eyes cold. "Remember, Samantha. 3 days. Not a minute more." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. As I turned to leave, David appeared in the doorway. "I'll walk you out," he said, his voice oddly strained. Outside, the morning sun was just peeking over the horizon. I turned to David, hoping for what? A kind word? A loving embrace? Instead, he stood there awkwardly, hands shoved in his pockets. "Have a good trip," he said finally. Tell Mike congratulations for me. That's it. I blurted out. That's all you have to say? David's eyes widened, then narrowed. What do you want from me, Sam? You know how busy we are here. I want you to act like my husband. I snapped, years of frustration bubbling to the surface. I want you to care that I'm leaving, even if it's just for a few days. Of course I care, David said, but his words rang hollow. It's just complicated. I laughed bitterly. Complicated. Right. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. David, we need to talk when I get back. Really talk. For a moment, fear flashed across his face. Did he know that I knew? But then his expression smoothed out, becoming unreadable. Sure, Sam. Whatever you want. I turned away, blinking back tears as I got into my car. As I pulled out of the driveway, I saw Cynthia watching from the window, her arms crossed. I pressed down on the accelerator, eager to put as much distance between us as possible. The further I drove from the diner, the lighter I felt. It was as if I'd been holding my breath for years and could finally exhale. The open road stretched out before me, full of possibility. My phone buzzed, and I glanced down to see a text from Mike. Can't wait to see you, sis. Lisa's dying to meet you. I smiled, warmth spreading through my chest. For the first time in ages, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe this trip was exactly what I needed to gain some perspective, to figure out what I really wanted. As I crossed the state line, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. My heart raced as I pulled over to check it. I hope you're on your way to happiness, Samantha. You deserve better than him. My hands shook as I stared at the message. It was from the same number that had sent me the photos of David's affair. Who was this person? And why did they care about my happiness? Before I could process it, another message came through. This time it was a video. With trembling fingers, I pressed play. David and Cynthia appeared on the screen, standing close together in the diner's storage room. Don't worry, Cynthia was saying, her voice low and urgent. We'll get rid of her soon enough. You just need to be patient. David nodded, looking conflicted but not disagreeing. I know, Mom. I know. The video ended, leaving me in stunned silence. Get rid of me? What did that mean? And why was David conspiring with his mother against me? As the implications sank in, I felt a surge of anger and determination. I'd been a fool for far too long, making excuses and trying to please people who clearly didn't have my best interests at heart. Well, no more. It was time to take control of my life. And it started now. With newfound resolve, I pulled back onto the highway. My brother's wedding awaited, and with it, the chance for a fresh start. Whatever David and his parents were planning, they were in for a surprise. Because this time I was ready to fight back. The miles flew by as I drove towards my parents' house, my mind a whirlwind of emotions. The video of David and Cynthia played on repeat in my head, their words cutting deeper with each mental replay. We'll get rid of her soon enough. How long had they been plotting against me? As familiar landmarks began to appear, a wave of nostalgia washed over me. I remembered driving this same route as a carefree teenager, full of dreams and ambitions. Where had that girl gone? I pulled into my parents' driveway, the sight of their modest home bringing a lump to my throat. Before I could even get out of the car, the front door burst open, and my mom came rushing out. Samantha, she cried, enveloping me in a warm embrace. Oh, sweetheart, it's so good to see you. I melted into her arms, feeling like a little girl again. Hi, Mom, I whispered, fighting back tears. Dad appeared in the doorway, his kind eyes crinkling with a smile. There's our girl, he said, joining our hug. For a moment, I let myself bask in their love, pushing away thoughts of David and his family. But as we walked into the house, reality came crashing back. Where's David? Mom asked, looking behind me as if expecting him to materialize. I thought he might come with you, even for a day or two. I forced a smile. Oh, you know how busy the diner gets. He couldn't get away. Dad frowned. That place works you both too hard. You look exhausted, Sam. If only he knew. I opened my mouth, ready to spill everything but stopped myself. This was supposed to be a happy time, celebrating Mike's wedding. I couldn't burden them with my problems. Not yet. I'm fine, Dad, I assured him. Just a long drive. As we settled in the living room, Mom chattering excitedly about wedding preparations, my phone buzzed. Another message from the unknown number. They're planning something big. Be careful, Samantha. My heart raced. Who was this person? And what did they mean by something big? Sam? Are you okay? Mom's concerned voice broke through my panic. I looked up to find both my parents watching me worriedly. In that moment, looking into their loving faces, something inside me broke. No, I admitted, my voice cracking. No, I'm not okay. And then, like a dam bursting, everything came pouring out. David's affair, the cruel treatment from my in-laws, the mysterious messages, and finally, the damning video. When I finished, silence filled the room. Mom had tears in her eyes, while Dad's face had turned stormy. Oh, Samantha, Mom said softly. Why didn't you tell us sooner? I shook my head, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. Dad leaned forward, his voice gentle but firm. You're not going back there, Sam. Not to that house, not to that diner, and certainly not to that sorry excuse for a husband. But what about the wedding? I protested weakly. I can't ruin Mike's big day with all this drama. You let us worry about that, Mom said, squeezing my hand. Right now, we need to focus on keeping you safe and figuring out what David and his parents are planning. As if on cue, my phone buzzed again. This time it was David. Where are you? Mom's furious. You need to come back now. I stared at the screen, a mix of fear and anger coursing through me. This was it, the moment of truth. Did I cave to their demands once again, or did I finally stand up for myself? I looked up at my parents, seeing the love and support shining in their eyes. And in that moment, I made my decision. With shaking fingers, I typed out my response. No, David. I'm not coming back. Not now, not ever. It's over. As I hit send, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Whatever came next, whatever David and his family had planned, I knew I wouldn't face it alone. For the first time in years, I felt truly free. The morning of Mike's wedding arrived in a flurry of activity. As I helped Mom with last-minute preparations, I pushed thoughts of David and his family to the back of my mind. Today was about celebrating love, not dwelling on betrayal. Sam! Mike's voice boomed through the house. Come meet Lisa. I took a deep breath, plastered on a smile, and headed to the living room. There stood my little brother, beaming with pride, his arm around a petite brunette with sparkling green eyes. Hi, I'm Lisa, she said, extending her hand. I've heard so much about you. As we chatted, I found myself genuinely warming to her. She was kind, funny, and clearly head over heels for Mike. For a moment, I felt a pang of envy. This was what real love looked like. The doorbell rang, interrupting our conversation. Dad went to answer it, and I heard hushed voices in the hallway. A moment later, he appeared in the doorway, his face grave. Sam, there's someone here to see you. My heart dropped as David stepped into the room. He looked haggard, his eyes bloodshot and his clothes rumpled. Sam, he said, his voice breaking. Please, can we talk? I glanced at Mike and Lisa, who were watching with concern. This isn't the time, David, I said firmly. It's important, he insisted. Please, just 5 minutes. Against my better judgment, I followed him outside. As soon as the door closed behind us, David's demeanor changed. What the hell do you think you're doing? He hissed. Mom's furious. You can't just abandon your responsibilities like this. I stared at him, incredulous. Responsibilities? You mean working myself to the bone in that diner while you and your mother plot against me? David's face paled. What are you talking about? I know about the affair, David, I said, my voice shaking. And I know you and Cynthia are planning something. It's over. I'm not coming back. You don't understand, David pleaded. It's complicated. Mom, she has a hold over me. Over both of us. If you leave now, she'll dash. He was cut off by the sound of screeching tires. A sleek black car pulled up, and Cynthia emerged, her face a mask of fury. "Samantha Allen," she snarled. "You ungrateful little dash. That's enough." My father's voice boomed from behind me. He stepped forward, placing himself between me and Cynthia. "You're not welcome here. Leave now, or I'm calling the police." Cynthia's eyes narrowed. "This isn't over, Samantha. You have no idea what you're up against." As they drove away, I sagged against my father, the adrenaline leaving me in a rush. What had I gotten myself into? Back inside, I found Mike and Lisa waiting anxiously. "Sam, what's going on?" Mike asked, his brow furrowed with concern. I looked at their worried faces, at the wedding decorations surrounding us, and made a split-second decision. "It's nothing," I lied. "Just a misunderstanding. Let's focus on your big day, okay?" As we resumed our preparations, guilt gnawed at me. I was keeping secrets from my family, just like I had with David. But how could I burden them with my problems on what should be the happiest day of Mike's life? My phone buzzed with another message from the unknown number. "They won't stop. You need to act now." I stared at the screen, torn between fear and determination. The stakes had just been raised, and I knew I couldn't face this alone anymore. But could I really drag my family into this mess? As I watched Mike and Lisa share a loving glance, I made my decision. After the wedding, I would tell them everything. We would face whatever was coming together as a family. For now, though, I pushed my worries aside and picked up my bouquet. It was time to celebrate love, even as my own world crumbled around me. Whatever Cynthia had planned, whatever secrets David was keeping, they would have to wait. Today, I would be the supportive sister my brother deserved. But tomorrow the gloves would come off. The wedding ceremony was a blur of tears and smiles. As I watched Mike and Lisa exchange vows, I felt a bittersweet ache in my chest. This was what true love looked like, so different from the sham my marriage had become. At the reception, I threw myself into the role of supportive sister, determined to keep my troubles from overshadowing Mike's big day. But as the evening wore on, the weight of my secrets became increasingly difficult to bear. "May I have this dance?" I turned to find Lisa's father, Robert, extending his hand. As we swayed to the music, he leaned in close. "Samantha, I couldn't help but notice the tension earlier with your husband," he said quietly. "Is everything all right?" I stiffened, caught off guard by his perceptiveness. "Oh, it's nothing," I lied. "Just a small disagreement." Robert's kind eyes studied me. "You know, I've been in business a long time. I've learned to recognize when someone's in trouble. If you need help, just say the word." Before I could respond, a commotion erupted near the entrance. My heart sank as I saw David stumbling in, clearly drunk. "Sam," he slurred, pushing past guests. "We need to talk. Now." I excused myself from Robert and hurried to intercept David before he could cause more of a scene. "What are you doing here?" I hissed, pulling him aside. "You can't leave me," David pleaded, his eyes wild. "Mom, she'll ruin everything. The diner, our lives. You don't understand what she's capable of." "What are you talking about, David?" I demanded, fear and confusion warring within me. But before he could answer, Cynthia appeared, her face a mask of fury. "David Allen, what do you think you're doing?" she snapped. As they argued in hushed, heated tones, I felt a hand on my shoulder. It was Mike, concern etched on his face. "Sam, what's going on?" he asked. "Why are they here?" I opened my mouth, ready to finally unburden myself, when suddenly David broke away from Cynthia and grabbed my arm. "We're leaving," he growled. "Now! Let go of me." I cried, trying to pull away. In an instant, Mike was between us, shoving David back. "Keep your hands off my sister," he warned. The reception had gone silent, all eyes on our unfolding drama. Shame and anger burned within me as I realized I'd failed to keep my problems from ruining Mike's wedding after all. "I'm so sorry," I whispered to Mike and Lisa, tears streaming down my face. As security escorted David and Cynthia out, I felt the last threads of my composure unraveling. I fled to a quiet corner of the garden, my body shaking with sobs. A few moments later, I heard footsteps approaching. I looked up to see my entire family, Mike, Lisa, Mom, Dad, and even Robert gathered around me. "It's time to tell us everything, Sam," Mike said gently. And so, surrounded by love and support, I finally let the whole ugly truth spill out. David's affair, Cynthia's manipulation, the mysterious warnings, and my growing fear of what they might be planning. When I finished, silence hung heavy in the air. Then Lisa stepped forward, her face set with determination. "We're not letting you go back there," she said firmly. "Whatever they're planning, whatever hold they think they have over you, we'll face it together." The others nodded in agreement, and I felt a surge of love and gratitude so strong it nearly overwhelmed me. But as I looked at their concerned faces, a new fear took hold. What if by involving them, I was putting them all in danger? What if Cynthia's threats extended beyond just me and David? My phone buzzed with a new message from the unknown number. "They're making their move. You need to act now." I stared at the screen, my heart racing. This was it, the moment of truth. Did I trust in the strength of my family and face whatever was coming head-on? Or did I try to protect them by dealing with this on my own? As the music from the reception drifted through the garden, a stark reminder of the joy I'd disrupted, I knew I had to make a decision. And whatever I chose, there would be no going back. The morning after the wedding, I woke with a sense of dread. My family's support had given me strength, but I knew the real battle was yet to come. I had to confront Cynthia and David, to end this nightmare once and for all. With trembling fingers, I dialed Cynthia's number. She answered on the first ring, her voice icy. "Well, if it isn't the runaway bride," she sneered. "Finally remembered your responsibilities?" I took a deep breath. "Cynthia, I'm not coming back. I want to extend my stay here and dash." "Extend your stay?" she interrupted, laughing coldly. "Oh, Samantha, you poor naive girl. There's nothing to extend. You're done here." My heart raced. "What do you mean?" "I mean," Cynthia said slowly, as if explaining to a child, "that you're no longer welcome in our home or our business. David has finally seen sense." "David?" I whispered, my world tilting on its axis. "Yes, dear. He's realized he doesn't need you anymore. In fact, he's quite happy with his new arrangement." The words hit me like a physical blow. I'd known about the affair, but hearing Cynthia speak of it so callously, as if it were a business transaction, made me feel sick. "You can't do this," I said, my voice shaking. "The diner, our home dash, are in our name," Cynthia cut in. "You have nothing, Samantha. You are nothing without us." As her words sank in, I realized the full extent of their manipulation. They'd isolated me, made me dependent on them, all while plotting to discard me when I was no longer useful. "Why?" I choked out. "Why go to all this trouble just to hurt me?" Cynthia's voice turned venomous. "Because you were never good enough for my son. You were meant to be a temporary solution, a way to keep David in line. But you got too comfortable, too demanding. It's time you learned your place." The line went dead, leaving me reeling. I stumbled out of the guest room, desperate for air, for clarity, for anything that made sense. My family was gathered in the living room, their faces etched with concern. One look at me, and they knew something was terribly wrong. "Sam," Mike said, stepping forward. "What happened?" I opened my mouth to explain, but no words came out. Instead, a sob tore from my throat, and I collapsed to my knees. In an instant, they were all around me, offering comfort, asking questions. Through my tears, I managed to relay Cynthia's cruel words. The loss of my home, my job, my entire life as I knew it. "Those monsters," Mom hissed, her eyes flashing with anger. Dad paced the room, his fists clenched. "We'll fight this, Sam. They can't just throw you out on the street." But I knew the truth. They could, and they had. I had no legal claim to the diner or the house. I'd been so naive, so trusting, and now I was paying the price. As the reality of my situation sank in, panic began to set in. Where would I go? What would I do? I had no money, no job, nothing. I have to go back, I said suddenly, standing up. Maybe if I talk to David, explained Dash. No, Lisa said firmly, grabbing my arm. You can't go back there, Sam. It's not safe. But I have nowhere else to go. I cried, my voice rising hysterically. They've taken everything from me. The room fell silent, the weight of my words hanging heavy in the air. I looked at the faces of my family, seeing their love, their concern, and their helplessness in the face of my despair. In that moment, standing in the ruins of my life, I felt more alone than ever. The woman I'd been just days ago, a wife, a daughter-in-law, a hard-working employee, was gone. In her place stood a stranger, lost and afraid. My phone buzzed again, another message from the unknown number. It's time to fight back. Are you ready? I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. Was I ready? Could I really take on Cynthia and David, with all their power and ruthlessness? As I looked up at my family, their faces set with determination, I realized I had no choice. It was time to reclaim my life, no matter the cost. With shaking hands, I typed my response. I'm ready. Tell me what to do. The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. Lisa, it turned out, wasn't just a successful businesswoman. She was the daughter of Robert Barnes, owner of one of the largest restaurant chains in the country. And she was furious on my behalf. We're going to make them pay, Lisa declared, her eyes flashing with determination. Nobody treats family like this and gets away with it. I watched in awe as Lisa worked her magic. With a few phone calls, she managed to convince most of Cynthia and Earl's suppliers to cut ties with the diner. Meanwhile, Mike was busy gathering evidence of David's infidelity and financial mismanagement. As for me, I was finally ready to fight back. With the help of a lawyer Lisa recommended, I filed for divorce and sued for my fair share of the diner's profits. The day of the confrontation arrived all too soon. My heart pounded as we walked into the diner, my family flanking me like an honor guard. Cynthia's face went pale when she saw us. What is the meaning of this? She sputtered. I stepped forward, my voice steady. It's over, Cynthia. We know everything, the affair, the financial manipulation, all of it. David emerged from the kitchen, his eyes widening in panic. Sam, please, let me explain. Dash. Save it. I cut him off. I trusted you, David. I loved you. And this is how you repay me. Lisa stepped up beside me. I'd like to introduce myself properly. Lisa Barnes, daughter of Robert Barnes. You might know my father's restaurants. They're only in direct competition with every diner in the state. The color drained from Cynthia's face. You can't do this to us, she whispered. Oh, but we can, Mike chimed in. And we will, unless you're willing to negotiate. What followed was a tense hour of negotiations. In the end, faced with the prospect of losing everything, Cynthia and Earl agreed to buy out my share of the diner at a fair price. David, looking defeated, signed the divorce papers without protest. As we left the diner for the last time, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. It wasn't just about the money or the revenge. It was about reclaiming my self-respect, my independence. You did it, Sam, Mom said, squeezing my hand. You stood up for yourself. I looked at my family, Mike and Lisa, arm in arm, Mom and Dad beaming with pride, even Robert, who had become an unexpected ally. For the first time in years, I felt truly supported, truly loved. That evening, as we celebrated our victory, my phone buzzed one last time. It was the unknown number that had started it all. Congratulations, Samantha. You're free now. Make the most of it. I stared at the message, 1,000 questions running through my mind. Who was this person? How did they know so much? But as I looked around at my family, I realized it didn't matter. Whoever they were, they had given me the push I needed to reclaim my life. Everything okay? Mike asked, noticing my distraction. I smiled, pocketing my phone. Everything's perfect, I said, and I meant it. As the night wore on, we talked about the future. Lisa offered me a job at one of her father's restaurants, a chance to start fresh. Mike and my parents promised to help me find a new place to live. For the first time in years, I felt excited about the future. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but I was no longer alone. I had my family, my strength, and a newfound belief in myself. As I lay in bed that night, I thought about the woman I had been just a week ago. Trapped, afraid, and alone. That woman was gone. In her place was someone stronger. Someone who knew her worth and wasn't afraid to fight for it. Tomorrow, I would start my new life. There would be challenges, of course, but I was ready to face them. Because now I knew the truth. I was more than David's wife or Cynthia's daughter-in-law. I was Samantha Allen, and I was finally truly free. With a smile on my face and hope in my heart, I closed my eyes and drifted off to sleep, eager to embrace whatever adventures the future held.